For everybody listening, thanks for joining. This is a very special investor panel. We've been able to get probably three of the best seed stage investors that really understand this technology to come chat with us. And so I'm very thankful for that. So just to give a quick background, Bert and JP, I found out about VR in 2014, 2015. I was 21 years old and decided this is what I wanted to do with my life, was to go start help enable the industry from an investment perspective. And so I got very lucky. And at the age of 22, 23, I was able to start a venture fund. And we raised about 5 million for that and invested in 30 companies. They were all AR, VR. So as you can imagine, I lost about 5 million bucks back then. It was a tragic situation. But then that was a good enough jump off point to where General Catalyst asked me to come work on their scout fund with them. And I parlayed that into starting my own VR startup. We raised a really great seed round from Spark Capital and General Catalyst and BizStone and some people like that. And then I worked at Meta. And then I started the Spatial Collective. And so essentially that's what I'm doing today. And what the Spatial Collective is, it's 140 founders that are all AR, VR founders. And we've gotten them together. And every Wednesday we come together and do different coaching sessions around investment, traction, hiring, kind of all the different areas of building a startup. And so today we have three very special guests. Is Jeff here yet? No, Jeff's not here. Okay. We're going to delete that. Okay. We have two very special guests here. So Bert is an incredible entrepreneur who started a VR AR company back in the day. You can give me the exact year, but it seemed like a decade ago.
2005.
Insane. Okay. Even more than a decade. So 2005. So a true pioneer of this industry, and went on to sell that company to Apple, and then helped with, it looks like, the Vision Pro, and kind of calibrating Apple towards where this whole puck is going. And then has since been on some amazing startup boards like Shapes XR. We had Inga come and chat with us maybe a month ago, and she was just like the absolute best, and so helpful. So
She's a
we're all
rock
huge
star.
fans. Say it again.
She's a rock star.
Rock star.
Yeah, love Ingo.
Absolute rock star. We were huge fans. Very cool. And now Bert is the founder of Triptych Capital. And so we'll have you kind of talk about your thesis as well. And then JP, I've been following you on Twitter for a while. You have an incredible tweet game, very impressive. And I've been sent your tweets by a number of founders in the space. And so I reached out and you were nice enough to respond to us. So thank you for that. And it looks like you've been with Hartman Capital about 2 years after doing some more financial analyst stuff prior to that. And Hartman Capital is a $55 million fund. So two really focused investors into the seed stage that know what they're doing. And so I guess that's where I'd like to start off today, is asking you two about, from a seed stage perspective, can you maybe tell the story of your best investment to date, or maybe your favorite one, and just kind of, since everyone here is seed stage or going to the A, talk about what you saw in that founder and some of the things they've been able to accomplish that put them in a unique category.
Bertrand, you want to start? You want me to take it?
Whatever, you can start.
Sure. So I'm not going to go out and say we have a favorite portfolio company, but we have a lot of companies in our portfolio that we like. And, we're one of the most active investors in the XR space. The majority of our portfolio in Fund 1 was XR, and now in Fund 2, we've so far only made XR investments. But I would say the delineating factor that really excites me at seed stage companies, especially in XR, is they are not waiting for the VC to be the 0 to 1 that makes their company launch. A lot of the best seed stage VR companies are already building. They've already started to find some level of PMF. They've already shipped. If you're on the Quest ecosystem, you've already launched your app, right? Previously on App Lab, now early access. And they're split testing. They're trying things. They're innovating. And the way they see venture investing is, hey, this is an accelerant to improve what we're already doing, rather than we need VC in order to make the company happen. And that would be the one thing I've seen throughout all of our very successful portfolio companies.
Awesome point.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, I think for me, since like I've been on the other side of the table, I think that I'll always add a vision, about the future of XR and how it can enable so many more things than gaming. Look, I'm an hardcore gamer. I started Vervana to be able to play my games in VR, so I totally get it. But as a neurodivergent person who learns differently than just with books, I can see the huge potential of XR for education, training, and all that. And so anything that accelerate that adoption, I'm super excited about it. So that's one of the reasons we did Shapes. It's definitely an enabler in the space, lower the barrier to entry. We also did Gracia AI, which it's a great way to make spatial content fully sixed off, with Gaussian splatting, where like at Apple that was something that was a challenge. It's like, yeah, you can film this amazing content. I don't know if you watch Submerge on the Vision Pro that was just released. It's breathtaking, beautiful, and everything, but you cannot move like six stuff. It's like fixed point of view. You can go 3 dots and all that. So for me, of course, with my background, anything in the XR space is what excites me. So I have a bias towards that. And anything that lowers the barrier to entry in the space is something I'm excited about.
And Bert, when you were building your company before you sold it to Apple, I mean, that's insanely early to be building VR. So to JP's point, you might have sat down with him and JP would have said, "What's your traction?" And you would have said, "What? I don't know. Yes, we have no traction, or we have traction, or we're waiting for VCs."
I mean,
like, what were you doing back then?
I was doing deep tech. So deep tech
Yeah.
it's really hard to get traction, and you're building hardware, and like so I would say we have like progress on the hardware, the experience. The traction was mostly the face of people seeing the demo. That was the real traction. And like when we won Best in Show at CES, that's another traction. So I think it's showing the potential of the technology with a really well-crafted demo. That was our traction. But I think when we sold, we only have 200K of revenues. So now I think it's a bit different now that the interest rates are higher than they used to. People want revenues and things like that. If you want to do your Series A, you need a couple million in ARR. So that's a different focus, I think, than the past 15 years where there was like zero interest rate money, and it was all about growth. So yeah, I mean, you need to find where you can be really good at. Like if it's like AI right now, like you see like Claude comes out, GPT-o1 comes out, like, and they all like pretty much similar, and you're like, okay, it's getting commoditized and everything, but you need to focus on something really specific where you can kind of create a dent in the universe. And that's not easy, but that's the advantage of a small startup is you have less resources. So you need to focus. If you don't, you're dead.
And Jeff, on that point, when you're talking about PMF, for everyone listening, product market fit, Bert's saying you really got to niche down. How do you, as an investor with Hartman, think about defining product market fit? And since you guys are a $55 million fund, a lot of money, but also still, relatively small compared to like the $1 billion funds out there. How do you kind of time it so that you can get ahead of the other investors and get into the best companies when you're looking at product market fit?
Sure. I'll add just a few clarification points to that. You said Jeff, but I think you meant that one to me. I don't think Jeff's in the call. And Hartman is slightly smaller than 55 million, but near that range. But to answer your question, and it kind of to Bertrand's point, going from the ZIRP environment, zero interest rate environment, and a lot of deep tech. I think a lot of investors got burned early on whenever the VC VR space, as both you guys know, kind of call it after Oculus acquisition. There was a lot of venture interest, but the tech wasn't there, right? We were still on PC VR. We weren't really in consumers' hands. It was a high barrier to entry. So we didn't really see that exist. So a lot of investors kind of grade off VR and XR as a non-investable space. But now we're starting to see a reversion now to where, of course, there's funds like ours and with Triptych that are actively focusing on the space, but other investors are starting to come in. And so, why do we see that is? And this is kind of tangential to your point. But now with the Quest ecosystem in standalone VR, we're now seeing meaningful growth, right? We're seeing meaningful adoption, real venture scalable businesses inside. And so the question that I always ask myself whenever I'm looking at a company in VR is, does it significantly improve the core experience of the users? Does it keep people in VR for longer, or does it drive new customers to engage? And it needs to fit one of those three. The more it hits, the better. But that's always the question we go and ask. And then what we can do from there, and we've invested in companies before that were pre-revenue, but we'd like to map out and say, if this works out and this goes to plan, can it achieve one of those three things? And if it does, that makes it more likely to convert into an investment.
So driving more customers, keeping people in VR, and your third one was?
So driving customers into VR, so adoption, right? Significant improvements into that. So that could be that was more the rare one, but some sort of hardware, right? A piece of hardware that could drive someone to enjoy the VR experience more, that could be integrated with Meta or Apple, and then retention, right? So content.
And Bert, do you think about it the same as JP there?
Sure, that's definitely a similar thing, but also making it easier to create content. I think like it's still like right now you almost need to come from the gaming industry to really do XR content, and it shouldn't be that way. I think that we need more like no code and easier way to create. And I think that's why I'm excited about Gen AI. I think Gen AI will really lower that that bar, and I see kind of cross-pollination between XR and AI. They got to kind of merge. And yeah, I mean, adoption is something, but retention, I agree, that's the most worrisome thing right now. Is like people use it, but they don't come back, or the length of their session is not that high. And I think that's what made like Gorilla Tag such a success, is like people, or there's other example where the social aspect is what creates retention. And we just Triptych and Artman just did an investment in that kind of social thing with Squeedo. So we want people to have fun, but also they want to hang out with their friends. They want to co-create things, UGC and things like that, and share it with other friends. So I think that's where, like, I think the killer app of XR is the social aspect. People think it's going to isolate people, but I think on the contrary, it will bring people who are far away together. And that's really one of the few technologies who can do that.
Yeah, Bertrand makes a fantastic point there, right? And it seems counterintuitive to think VR is social. Oh, I'm putting on my headset, I'm isolating from the world. That's simply the the common consensus of much from what you hear from people. But if we go and look and see product market fit, what works best on Quest, and it's all social, right? I wrote a really big thread on Gorilla Tag explaining that, and Squeedo, which we just Triptych and Hartman both just did, really kind of adds on to that same sort of thesis. Because VR, you have to think about what uniquely sells VR and what brings attention to VR. What's the unique selling point of it, right? And that's immersion. And that also goes alongside social immersion. So you're able to connect with people all over the world and have an experience more close to reality than any other piece of technology. And so it's created this infinite social loop where people from all over the world, all different demographics, are able to come here, spend time together, and not be bound by the physical world around them, but can be in a completely immersive digital world while still embodying a physical person.
So you two both have clearly thought about this a lot. I want to get into the minds of investors here, because everyone's a seed stage founder or around there. Everyone is looking to figure out, how do we bring in like the best investors in the industry to support us? And I think some people have only fundraised for the first time. Some people, you know, are haven't even fundraised yet. So I think it'd be really helpful to get into the mind of kind of like how a firm operates, how you think through decisions and all of that. So that'll be my last question. And then if everyone in the audience can start to think of Q&A, the best part of these Wednesday conversations are always, you know, the questions that the founders ask from the front lines of building this industry directly with our guests. So start to think of your questions and then use the emoji to raise your hand. Okay, but JP Burt, so this is kind of my final question here. Can you walk us through, as if I was a 5-year-old, how do you make an investment decision? And that's everything from, you know, what day do you do your meetings? How do you plan out if you should decide to invest or not? How much do you decide to invest? How many partners have to buy in? Like, if I was a 5-year-old, how would you kind of coach me through how you make a decision to fund something?
Bertrand, do you want to start this one?
Sure, I can start. I can talk about Triptych. I think it's not the same thing at like each. I consider ourselves a startup. So, you know, you need to build your company culture, your process and things like that. And we've been at it for 2.5 years. So it's still a work in progress. And as a entrepreneur turned investor, I'm very sensitive to founders' feedback to improve. So right now, I would say how it works is like the first meeting will probably be done with a principal or an analyst to kind of see, does it fit in our thesis? Our thesis is mostly related to creative industries and like technology that will transform the creative industries. We don't do pure content play. So the first go no go will be like with the principal or the analyst, and after that we'll bring the partner for the second meeting, the partner who's the most knowledgeable about, because we do music, we do sports, we of course XR or hardware. So when it's XR and hardware, I will probably take the call, and we meet every Monday for deal flow. So we kind of bounce ideas about what we like, what we want to dig further. And we try to at least give a go, no go after the second meeting. So in the past, we will drag a bit more and we saw some frustration. So that's something if it doesn't fit after two meetings, we say, sorry, it's not for us. We don't want to lose any time on both sides. And what we look for, or at least me personally, but I think it's pretty aligned with my partners, team first. So complementary team, solo founders, we might do it at pre-seed if it's a repeat founder and he's still like getting to find a co-founder, and we're pretty confident he's going to have a co-founder by seed stage. But you want a CEO who's very business savvy, but hopefully also understand the tech, and a beast as a CTO who likes always learning the new technologies out there. It's moving so fast that you need to like have a thirst for knowledge. So that's team is definitely the first thing. And I would say also how they think. So the business idea we know is going to change. We're probably going to pivot multiple times. At Vervana, we pivoted like 3 times until we found our product market fit. So, but what's important is the thought process. Why did they choose this idea? Do they understand the market and all that? So to understand like how they read the market and why are they passionate also about the problem they're solving? Because if you're not passionate and you just go because it's the flavor of the month or of the year, when it will get tough, and it will, you'll probably go to the next fad. So anyway, I don't want to take too much time. I'll let GP continue, but that's pretty much what we're doing. Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
awesome. Thank you.
I think it's a pretty similar outlook to how we have it. I mean, we definitely make some.
That's why we co-invest together.
Exactly. We share a lot of investments. Shape Sectar, and then most recently Squito, and a few more as well. Yeah. So we definitely operate in a similar place, and I think Bertrand made a really great point that operating like a startup, most VC funds are pretty small. I mean, we have a team of 5, and 3 of them are in the investing team, so we don't really have thousands or hundreds of hands on deck making these things happen. I would say for the order, because I think that's the important part, because I think a lot of times it can be ethereal for founders to understand where the VC mind is. So when we take a first call comes from either some introduction, so it could be a warm introduction, either another VC in the space of, oh, hey, we're investing in this deal, do you want to take a look at them, or it didn't fit us, do you want to do that? It could be from another founder. One of our founders' portfolio says, oh, hey, I have a friend in the industry who's raising, you should take a meeting with them, like that. And then occasionally we'll have a cold inbound where someone will send a message out of the blue and take that. Most meetings happen via an introduction. If somebody that I respect a lot and think highly of recommends somebody to me, my likelihood of taking the meeting is a lot higher. First meeting is typically just kind of like a get to know each other. All right, at this point, we validated in order to get on the call that you fit somewhat in our thesis, that we're going to get on the call because there could be some synergies. That's kind of a getting to know. That's also kind of a vibe check. That's do we like your energy? Do we think that you have good founder product fit? Can you be the person that brings this? Is it a good idea? Is this an idea that we have that same thesis in? And kind of to Bertrand's point, yeah, just understanding the team, meeting the team. Do we like them? Not necessarily as people, but as operators, as founders. So we go and do that, and I typically do the XR deals at our fund. We have another guy who focuses more on Gen AI deals. And so we go from there, and our decision process typically looks like once one of us takes a call with one of these founders, we make kind of like a basic investment report. We say, hey, if there's anything else, we have a few more questions, we'll follow up on another channel for that. We'll bring it to the rest of the team. If the rest of the team is interested, then we'll continue and do another call. We have 3 people on our investment committee, and if 2 of the 3 don't like it, we very, very rarely continue to pursue the deal. But then from there, we go and talk. We typically have a few more chats. This changes depending on how full the round is, how early the product is. But typically in a 2 to 3 week window is when you'll hear, hey, we want to invest, or we don't want to invest, or maybe if your company does XYZ things, then in the future we could be ready to invest. So that's typically our decision process. We write standard size checks for companies. Sometimes the valuation can change. Sometimes the check amount can change a little bit, but we have a pretty fixed target on what we're looking for when we are constructing our fund portfolio.
What size is that, just for reference?
Yeah, so most first seed stage deals are around $300,000.
Awesome. That's perfect. All right. Well, this one's a cool story. We're going to bring JD up here as our first guest. So I actually met JD back when he was in college. And since then, he's raised, I think, $1.5 million or something like that. And he's put together like Jimmy Iovine or whoever's on your cap table. You've done just incredible stuff since I met you in college. And so you're a special person in my heart. I feel like I watched you grow up. So please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thanks, Don. Appreciate it. Hey, Bert, this question is directed to you, but JP would love your thoughts as well. I guess we share a very similar thesis that like Gen AI will enable the time and efficiency gains that are needed to like drop the barriers to entry to content creation for AR VR. It's something we've been like trying to tackle from a lot of different angles, from like the collaborative web browser approach, something similar to like ShapesXR, all the way down to like, how do we use like Gen AI to like create assets and to, tackle rendering. It's something we like so strongly believe in that we like pivoted our entire company away from what we were doing previously to this new approach. So I guess my question is like, how are you guys thinking about the Gen AI tech stack, right? There's their models, foundational models. These are people that have raised hundreds of millions of dollars to kind of train a model to scrape the internet. There's the inference and kind of middle layer tech stack, which I think is what we're trying to play in. And then there's like the application layer side. What are you guys and how are you guys thinking about those three different touch points? Am I missing anything? Would just love your thoughts there.
Yeah, great question, because I was thinking about it lately, like where can we play? I think like on the foundation models, I think it's too late. Like too much money needs to be put in, training, all that. So I think like the people who needed to raise, they did it, and they were probably doing, like OpenAI has been at it like for 2016, and it's a bit like Ravana. You know, we started in 2005 doing our thing, and then it kind of exploded when Oculus got bought, and then we raised. But we were at it for so long, you know. So if you start when you know, like haha moments happen in industry, I think it's too late. So where we, or at least I think there's a lot of value right now, is mostly is reducing the friction to enable it for the most people. So right now, I think it's very complicated. Like I haven't played myself, but you know, you can use comfy UI to kind of, but it's not easy. You know, it's quite cumbersome to do, from what I understood. So if you can create like a user interface that you know, you can kind of, you know, a bit like Adobe products, where like they're pretty you know, easy to use, and kind of go from, okay, I have this crazy idea in my head, and like in 30 minutes I can come up with maybe not something amazing, but at least like a good storyboard that kind of, and then you can iterate and make it better. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, you see like all those models, they come up so fast, and one is getting better, the other words change, and you're like, so you want the backend to be exchangeable pretty easily, and where I see a big opportunity is on the front end to create an amazing front end, and depending of your use case, the backend will choose like which model to leverage and all that. At least for pre-seed and seed, that's where I see there's still great opportunities. But if you're later stage, I think it's a different game.
I don't have too much to add to that, other than I should share that I changed my mind on this. I actually agree more with Bertrand. During the proliferation of AI startups, call it post ChatGPT, so you know, late 22, early 23, I was seeing a lot of deals that were just wrappers for the most part, right? So we're seeing a lot of things where they had a UI, but and they would have really great numbers and great data. But I'm like, well, this isn't really defensible. But then it kind of dawned on me that the knowledge, I mean, you guys are all technical founders, so a lot of this is ubiquitous. We understand these models to an extent, say, oh yeah, you could just do this, doing it that way. I don't need to go through this app. But that's not where most of the consumer world is, right? So you have to think, like, how does the average consumer interact? I mean, there are thousands of apps on the app stores that are essentially wrapping with a really good UI, a really great user flow, and they get, you know, hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in ARR. And so it really is important to focus on UI and have the lowest friction possible in the way to interact. Same sort of thing with XR, right? I have a test for all the XR apps. Like, okay, we're all used to jank. You know, we understand what happens when 6DoF isn't working right, or your controller's dead, and how to interact. You know, we can deal with the jank. A lot of people can't. So I like to test it on typically less technically proficient people to see how easy it is to use. So I see Gen AI very much in the same way, where UI is maybe the most defensible part, actually, of AI apps.
Makes sense. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Wrapping GPT and making hundreds of $1,000s is my dream. That's awesome. I'd like to do that.
I see
All right,
this
Alex,
story every day.
I agreed. Very jealous. No, that's awesome. All right, Alex, hello. Just for reference, so Jeff, Zayden, Uli, Joe, since I just met you all today, I got to make sure I get through all the members first. And so just that's the order of questions we'll go here. All right. Alex has been building in public, which clap it up. That's very brave. I like that.
Yes.
Um,
And I've been following,
yeah, so-
and I've enjoyed watching.
Yeah, just I've read some of your threads
Awesome.
before.
Keep it up, man.
But
for it,
yeah,
Alex.
I wanted to ask Raghu, I don't know how to pronounce your name, Raju? Raghu, you mentioned earlier in school something that I was also interested in, which is that in 3 weeks on November 14th, I'm planning on launching my game on the early access part of the Quest store. And right now, because they've changed App Lab so that it's integrated, he was mentioning that a lot of people aren't getting the same sort of
The discovery
like
is
track.
very hard. Discovery
Yeah,
is very
yeah.
hard. Yeah.
So I'm making a game
Is
called
this a-
Balloon Bats. Sorry, go ahead.
Alex, is this a question for Bert and JP or a question for Raghu?
It's a question. Basically, I'm building a game like Gorilla Tag. It's called Balloon Bats. You fly around. The kids love it. What are your tips for launching well on the store so that you can get the most traction possible?
So I can say we've seen this massive shift, you know, on Quest, right? And Quest really is the VR ecosystem right now. We had App Lab previously, so you were either on App Lab or you were on main store, and it was about 3 times as big on App Lab, but you didn't have any discoverability from there. There was no natural discovery until you got onto the main store, which then it would oftentimes get bolstered by Meta. It actually created this nepotism-like relationship where you had to know someone at Meta to get on the main store. Then once you got on the main store, you would almost automatically have a revenue sync. But they changed their strategy to now pretty much anyone can launch on early access, which was previously App Lab, and now can be discoverable through natural search. But it's a supply demand. Now we have this abundant supply of apps now on the ecosystem, right? And so they're not getting any sort of attention. And this has been a new problem. You know, this switch only happened 3-4 months ago. And so I've been talking with a lot of teams, like trying to figure out where to go from that. And the number one thing that I hear consistently from founders and from our portfolio is third-party, like off-channel marketing, right? So primarily TikTok, YouTube Shorts. And for your game specifically, Alex, right? You're within that core demographic. The core demographic of the Quest ecosystem is boys 13 to 18, right? That's who's driving most of the interactions we have here. And yours fits that. So you go where they have attention, right? And so what we've seen from our successful portfolio companies is a lot of great retargeting, either paid ads or organic on YouTube Shorts, on TikTok, on Instagram Reels. And the best kind of content typically has to do with just memeing, right? And watching someone play the game and giving the viewer envy that they're not the ones doing that, or they're not the ones that have that feeling right there.
FOMO.
Yes, it's FOMO, right? It's pure FOMO. That's a way more concise way to put it. So I would say continue to make content, POV content, challenge content, just from the game, people having a good time, make someone feel like that they have to be there. Show them videos.
All right.
Yeah, the
thank you very
only
much.
thing I would add is like I've seen a Portco where is their second game, and they since the merge of App Lab, and they saw like a big difference, and he had to talk with Meta to say, look, what's happening? Like the discovery on our first game was X, and now we launched a new game and we see totally different metrics, and they're like, oh yeah, we know we screwed up, we're trying to, and then they fixed something recently, and then it took off. So I think they're in a transition period. So you need to have a good contact there and tell them your frustration.
No,
Do you have
that
any
is
contacts to share? I mean, I don't have that.
that is great. I think that's a very important point to make. I think they kind of overdid their decision, right? So like a lot of people I talked to at Meta said, okay, this seemed great because apparently we were gating people from being able to come, and now they've opened the floodgates, and now we have apps like Unity Cube, right, which is the default cube in Unity, and it's on there, and it's a great meme that says, okay, we've gone too far, we need to have some level of curation. Yeah, and Unity Cube is like now a top app, and it's like, all right, guys. So I do think
They're trolling.
Yes, yeah, it's pure troll. It's pure troll. But hey, if it makes a change happen, I do think we're going to go back to some level of curation, right? Because the way Meta has to think about this is the reason they fund content is they want people not only to convert by the headsets, which is where a big IP like Batman is, but then once they're inside the headset, you know, can they stay there? Do they have something that has good D30 retention? Can this become somebody's default game? Will they choose to put the Quest back on instead of going to their Xbox? And so that's the way they're thinking about things there. So I think it will get better in the coming months.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you, Alex. You know, JP, you make fun of UnityQ, but the #1 most viewed and liked post on Instagram is just a picture of a banana. So people
For real?
troll. That's internet culture. Yeah, that's just how it happens.
Nice.
That's great. Now, it is not my investor recommendation to launch UnityQ 2. Okay, that is a one and done. It will not be successful again.
Good. Bert, quick question. So that's on the consumer side. How do you think about, I know maybe you're not funding the enterprise, but like prosumer B2B you would look at on the design creative side. How do you think about getting your first users if you're on that side of the puck? And I'm going to bring up James as well for his next question.
Yeah, I mean, at Vervana, we started B2C and then we switched to B2B. And I think it's a totally different value proposition. Is instead of like competing for hard-earned cash from your consumers, when you do B2B, is more about how much money will you save them. So like when we did the headset, you know, at first we tried to be competitive with the Rift, which was really priced very aggressively at like $500 or $400, I don't remember. But like her BOM cost was more than that. So it was really hard. And that's when we said, you know what, like if we can't have a great experience at that price point, let's do like the Ferrari of headset. And then we went where like our BOM cost would be like 3,000 and we would sell it 5,000. But when we would approach those enterprise customers, it was more, okay, so right now you're using a simulator with tons of screens that's like 20, 30K, you'll be able to replace that with a headset of 5,000. So it was much easier to sell them. So the pricing is really different in B2B. So I don't know if it answered your question, but that's my insight.
Yeah, it makes sense. Based around saving money. All right, I was just curious myself. James, I love the fact that you have a matching shirt and background. That's awesome. Good branding. You're muted. There you go. Please ask your question.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming to talk to the group. I appreciate y'all's insight so far. It's been great. Recently, without naming names, I spoke to a VC and I pitched my concept, and the response was basically, come back in 6 months if you decide to go free to play. And my question to y'all is there a certain monetization type that y'all are primarily looking for when you're looking to invest in a game? Is it on a per game basis? And is there a certain kind that you actively avoid?
You want me to take that, Bert?
Yeah, I take it because you do more content than me, you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
Got it. Awesome, James. Is your game on Quest or on Steam? Where are you planning on launching?
It's going to be on Quest and on Steam. Right now, we just have a closed pre-alpha, so there's no
Got
sales yet.
What's the TLDR of the game?
TLDR, it's like a co-op virtual reality caveman survival game. It's got permadeath kind of roguelike loop where the map changes with each generation. When you die, you spend your skill points, you come back as your son or daughter, and that's basically the story. It's very sandbox, very semi-open world, and it's got like a focus on social multiplayer and like surviving with friends together.
Got it. And for social, is it primarily closed loop where people are playing with their existing friends, or are they meeting strangers and playing with strangers?
Yeah, so we have kind of developed for my generation where I come from, like the Halo 3 generation of games, I miss the age when there's a multiplayer, there's a quick play, there's a campaign, and there's like a co-op. It's a full package in my mind. I feel like we lost that many years ago.
Yeah.
So for Neolithic Dawn, we have a single player survival mode, a co-op with friends survival mode, and then just a super casual, no like death, nothing that you can't starve to death, that we call Campfire Hangout. It's basically like social matchmaking, and you find friends there, and then you can invite them to your world. Got it.
Yeah, sounds very Halo-esque. RIP Forge. Right, but yeah, kind of going to your point. If you're building in social for VR, it is an economics of scale issue, right? And you have to compete now with all the other free-to-play games, right? It's almost a game theory problem in that way where you know, the first cohort of VR games could be priced. They typically weren't premium priced, but you know, $20 to $30 because maybe it wasn't as expansive a game. And people were willing to pay that because that was the options. But now the market is filled with really good free-to-play games with good live service. People are continuing playing, and the people who are converting inside, I mean, oftentimes you're having like a sub 10% conversion rate of players who actually convert at any point within the game. But you're still able to get the scale inside, right? Like Gorilla Tag is a great example of that. Squeedo Studios, both of their titles are good examples of that. So I do think going forward for social games in VR, if your primary loop is social, you do need to be free to play. And there are different monetization strategies to go inside. So like the Yeeps team has been crushing it here with these monthly subscriptions for new items, right? So they have like interactable items. I don't necessarily recommend cosmetics as a baseline. Cosmetics will work when your game is the default game. That's why Gorilla Tag works so well, is because their weekly and monthly retention is incredible. So people want to have identity inside. But with the game, and I would need to know a little bit more about where your game sits. You could also, and I haven't seen enough developers do this, but I do think it would work well, is having sectional paid, right? Where maybe you have a free experience that can kind of Trojan horse the rest of the product. So maybe multiplayer is free, but campaign co-op, there's a conversion event inside. I'm happy to follow up you privately after this too and talk a little bit more in depth. But I would say if you are planning on building social VR, you really do need to be a free-to-play game.
Absolutely. No, thank you for your response. I think that's something we've considered strongly, is taking the Campfire Hangout and breaking it off as a free-to-play experience to kind of lead into the campaign. So yeah, no, that's a good tip.
Certainly. Or you have anything to add?
Nothing to add other than, since I think that the killer app of VR is social, and you said like if you have a social component, you need to be free to play. I think like especially with the demographic of like 13 to 18, where they don't have that much money, you know, I think free to play is the way to go.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, James. All right, so I want to try something because we have a lot of questions for you two, and we have 15 minutes left, and I want to be respectful of your time. We're going to try a speed Q&A here and see how this goes. If I do my math correctly, we have about 7 people with their hands up. That times 1 minute for a question and then 1 minute for an answer. This is a 1 minute, whatever it's called. So let's try this where everybody gets 1 minute to go through their question here and 1 minute to answer as well. And let's see if we can power through this so everyone gets to their question. Marvin, faster the better. Go for it, buddy.
I'll try to talk quick. So this is for JP. Nice to see you again.
That's good.
You were saying that one of the things you're looking for when evaluating a investment is if it makes the VR experience significantly better. And when asked how this can be done, you quote unquote answered that, for example, with some kind of hardware. So if I understand correctly, you haven't yet invested in any hardware. So I was wondering if this is just because of a lack of great opportunities, or if there's some certain concern that you're having with hardware.
So typically we do primarily software investments. I think we made 1 or 2 hardware investments in our 30 plus company portfolio. The biggest issue with VR when it comes to hardware, or one, hardware is capital intensive, right? It does not scale in the same sense that software does, which can be fine for some VCs, but we're a seed stage VC, and typically we cannot front that capital alone. Typically, if we come in first check, we can meaningfully help with the amount of money we give for software development. The other issue when it comes to hardware, especially consumer hardware, and we've seen this with a lot of different startups inside, is that you're building within a niche if you're selling to the consumer, right? So let's say we have
seconds.
There's 40 million Quest headset units. If you have 10% conversion, that's 4 million. That's super optimistic. We haven't seen 10% conversion on anything yet, so we don't know if it can scale to that level, given the size of the VR market.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
And 1 point, Marvin is a 23-year-old boy genius, Bert. who's building hardware. He's built an insane treadmill system that is, it was incredible. You should look at it. But
Yeah.
do you have
No,
any
we should
hardware
talk.
tips?
Because I love hardware.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
know
Mar-
you know hardware. Do you have any
Mar-
tips for him? Like, he's literally mechanically engineering this all himself with no money. It's incredible what he's doing.
Be frugal. I mean, to be honest, like from 2005 to 2013, we had like a 70K budget yearly and lots of R&D credits in Canada. So that's how we survived for so long. And then when there was an inflection point with the Oculus Cell, we were able to raise. But yeah, hardware is hard, but it's fun. I wouldn't do it anyway. In any other way. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, Marvin's great. I'm excited to try the treadmill. If you're at AWE this year, you're gonna have it there, right?
We're not so sure yet if we're going there.
Okay.
Do you have someone there from your team who's going?
I'll follow up with you after speed rounds.
All right, perfect.
Play hard to get, Marvin. We got you. All right, Raghu, hello. Power
buddy.
hour. Let's do it.
All right, yeah, no, really a quick question. I'm with a game called Pickleball One. We make a pickleball VR game for the Quest, and yeah, there he is. So it's done fairly well. We're suffering a little bit from the store change, but otherwise we've had really good success on the store. I wanted to know, you mentioned free to play. What about subscription? Do you see subscription as something that people are adopting or accepting?
So you sit in
Some
an
free to play apps are doing it.
yeah. So you sit in a pretty good spot by being pickleball, right? Because your core audience is typically a little bit older, right? More
Actually, it's interesting. Our core group is like 35 to 55 or something who play, and they pay for the game. They pay.
But that's old for the Quest ecosystem compared to the teenagers, right?
Right.
So like that's a more mature audience. That's more aligned with what we see with a lot of fitness apps that tackle
And
that
more
25,
money.
right? Exactly, who have more disposable income, who are more willing to convert on subscription. So if we look at any of the really big fitness companies, and where they're selling to that same older, mature adult income generating audience, subscription really hasn't been a deterrent. And your LTV is a lot higher, right? You're able to generate a lot more per customer. I would say that still probably is the meta when that is your target demographic. But I still am of the belief that developers should have some free experience to be able to come in before subscription, just so they don't have to make that purchase decision before coming inside.
Got it. Thank you.
I concur.
Thank you.
Bert, you're using this much here, buddy. You're doing great. Thank
Dude,
you.
he's
I
doing
want to give it to the others.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, all right.
impressed.
I'm talking too much. Bertrand, you take this
No,
next one.
no,
it's
we're
great.
getting the answers.
You're-
That's what people
you
are
have
here
more
for.
data points than me on that side, so it's all good.
Yeah, you're doing content. Armin, hello.
Hello. Hi, guys. Thank you for being here. Just a quick question for JP, actually. So I have a social software. It's not a game, but it could be VR also. It's just any device, but it's there's a social and it's B2B2C really. So it's for sports industry. So is there any way to talk to you guys and get some traction, or well, how does the process work? Right, you'll be my first VC.
The asking how the investing process works or traction.
Yeah, with you, Chile. How do I get started? We're not a game. We're not doing any gaming. It's social, definitely social, and it's in sports industry.
And you're asking how to get customers. I'm sorry, I'm a little confused by your question.
So customers we're going to be the spectator sports clubs. It's a B2B2C.
Got it. Here, I would need to know more to really answer from there. You can find me on Twitter, either at JP Manettos or on LinkedIn. If you want to DM me, I can follow up with you in direct message.
Okay. I'll use LinkedIn. Okay.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you. Deepak, what's up? Come on up here.
All right, guys. Hey, I appreciate you guys coming on. So if you two were going out and raising money now, what would be your process?
Take a Bert.
As a founder, like starting a new startup. or as a fund raising a new fund?
No, you were a startup
Yeah.
and you had a blank sheet of paper, or you had a product, you
Yeah.
had MVP, whatever stage you were, what would be your process?
Great question.
I would find a pain that's shared by as many people as possible, but that I'm passionate about, you know, like where
Oh, Bert,
this,
not how do you start a company? How would you
Yeah.
go about raising funding if you
yeah,
are
yeah. Well, I'm getting there.
a company, all
So
that?
once I have that, I would find the best co-founder for that pain. And then since it's not my first rodeo, I would do my POC on my own money, proof of concept, and really get feedback, and then get a really not just a Figma kind of POC, you know, something really strong where it shows the vision. And then I would do a kick-ass data room to show it's not my first rodeo and I'm organized. And then instead of going VC to VC, I would invite all of them in my data room and say, you set the terms, may the best win, you know? So kind of change the dynamic. So I don't know if as a VC, if I should tell you that, but that's what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
That's what we want, man. We need that, right? I think this collective needs that formulation, right? And programming how to go after and talk to relevant and applicable investors who want to partner, right? Not just chase funding.
Right. Oh, that you make the most important part there, right? That are wanting to partner. And I think the issue a lot of founders make is that they kind of like beg for money, like, hey, if we don't have money, we're gonna go under. Right. And it's like, hey, we're not here to save you, we're here to be partners to want to grow with you. So like what I'd love to see, right? Or if I was in that position, I would start raising post MVP or proof of concept. I need to see something that works. I need to prove to the investor that I am capable of building off this vision. And right, here's the thesis. Bertrand's example, if you're already another founder, you say, hey, I was an exit founder, whatever, that helps a lot. If you're not, build, improve, and then show, right? Through data, through development, through launching, something like that, and say, hey, we're going to find VCs that are very specific to what we do. And ideally we get an intro. We don't cold message them. We get an intro to them and say, hey, we're looking for X amount of money. Terms are open. This is what we need the money for. Here's what we've done. This is what the money is going to let us do. We've seen the investments you guys have made. We think you're a good fit. Let's hop on a call and then convert from there and then target the VCs who are relevant to that. But Bertrand's idea is pretty good too. So that would
But
be
at the heart of both, thank you, Deepak. At the heart of both what you're saying, it's create some sort of competition, find the right fit, and actually like the people that you're going to bring onto your cap table. I think those are really important things to do.
Yeah, and not necessarily choose the one who has the higher valuation. Like that's a big mistake people do. Like they just take the fattest valuation on the term sheet, and like the best VCs, they will never give you the best valuation because they understand the value they bring, and it's also a test. It's like if you're just chasing a valuation, it's not for us.
Yeah. Agreed.
Thanks, guys.
We've been trying to figure out the formula. Naga, can you stand up and just do this with your chain? You look like a rapper here. Yeah. Okay. I love this. This is sick. Naga's doing stuff in the DoD space, so he's doing some pretty important stuff for the world here.
So we're mainly focused on, I'm with PFM Innovations. We do products for military. We are mainly providing situational awareness tools. We're mainly targeting on the Magic Leap 2 platform. ARTAC is already out there. That is for the C2 indoor environment. We're targeting the outdoor environment with our radios because we want to pair the Magic Leap 2 device and hopefully other companies that use Magic Leap's hard technology, mainly because we want the ASOP project used on future headsets. We're using that to pair this. We're looking for a seed round. a large seed round of 2 to 5 million. And I know that's mainly because we're targeting hardware. My co-founder is a ex-Harris director. He's already sold this other radio to the military under foreign military sales and grants. We're building a new PFM is our new product line targeting augmented reality solutions. My main question is, since we're in such a niche and there's not many investors in the VC world that might be targeting military, I've been looking at a couple of places, mainly the investors behind Anduril. Do you guys have any other recommendations?
Have you talked to In-Q-Tel? Sorry. Have you talked to In-Q-Tel?
In-Q-Tel.
Good one.
Because Vervana, we looked at the military too, like, so In-Q-Tel is a fund specialized in military. Yeah, and you can look at the Anduril investors too, but go ahead, GP.
Yeah, I would say you might consider, instead of framing it as we have a spatial VR company, but we have a military defense company that uses this tech, your best bet might be to go and look around for those hard tech VCs that are investing in defense technologies. And I think a lot of these big conglomerates, your Lockheed Martins and your Raytheons, I think a lot of them have investment arms where they want to see new tech coming in. So I would recommend maybe scouring those, finding those big public companies that have investment arms for innovation.
Also, I'm investor in a company that do wireless power, and they are going to the military, and they had a really nice contract with a big manufacturer, and it was non-dilutive. So sometimes, like you can, like if your technology enables them to sell more device or make their device better, then that's another way to fund yourself.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, so we are at time. I want to be respectful of Bert and JP's time here. Do you two want to have any maybe like last giving bits of advice that you can share with people around fundraising or just building startups in general?
Perseverance is key. It's the number one thing that will make you successful, because you need luck, but luck is the longer you survive, the bigger chance you'll get luck. So that's my only advice.
Yeah, I think perseverance is great. And then also act as if you don't need funding in order to have a successful startup, right? Do not wait for a savior to come in and do it. Take on the personal agency and the personal responsibility to say, I'm going to do this. And it's going to be so incredible that VCs are going to have to get in. They're going to want to get in because it's too good. Yeah.
There's a old saying is like, ask for money and you'll get advice. Ask for advice and you'll get money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the less you need money, the more VCs want to invest. Okay.
Yeah.
Gave a long presentation about fundraising strategy, and that was the key to it. Yep. And Bert, to your point, another thing we talk about is the longer something exists, the more likely it is to exist in the future. And if you can just keep staying alive, then you can be the one that exists in the future. So thank you very much for that.
Lindy effect.
All right. Thank you too. If you guys want to stay, by the way, I don't know if you're able to schedule wise, feel free to stay and chat with people, but thank you very much for coming.
Yeah.
It means a lot to us. Everyone here is a founder trying to do our best effort. And so for you guys to give time to us, it means a lot to be able to come here.
Yeah, that's awesome, guys. That's super happy to see all that you've done. Keep up the good work. If you are looking for investment or you just want to talk, you can find me either on Twitter or LinkedIn at JP Monetos. We're one of those active investors in the space. And I'll kind of end with that. And I really enjoyed it. Don, thank you for having us here.
Yeah, same thing for me. I'm always answering every message on LinkedIn. So
yes,
it's easy. I'm on Twitter too, but LinkedIn is easier for me. Yeah.
Yeah, and Bertrand's awesome. One of the smartest guys investing in the space.
Yeah, Bert,
glad
I
we
sent
got
out a
action.
lot of invites to people over the last few weeks on the investor side or on the AR founder side. The amount of people that said like they know you and think the world of you is just crazy from an investor perspective.
Well,
so
it means the world to me because I have less of scars in the space. So the more I can give back from my wisdom, the better.
Mhm.
That's awesome. What if you guys can stay, I do have a thought. I mean, one thing we were talking about.
Yeah, I
was,
can stay a few minutes. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
All right, cool. One thing we were talking about was like how important it is to do proper process when fundraising. And so the way that we talked about it, or like the way that I frame it, is that it's 80% networking and then 20% closing. And what I mean by that is like you should have a backlog of people that like you and know what you do, but you're not actually pitching them and not putting pressure on them. And then when you're ready to close, you schedule all those meetings back to back to back with everyone you've networked with over the previous few months. And then you're like actually pitching and closing within a few weeks. And both of you said that your process from meeting somebody to actually closing only takes a few weeks. I think like a lot of founders kind of have these schedules where they pitch someone here, then they pitch someone 2 weeks later, then they pitch another fund. And it's not really like a rudimentary strict process. I guess like, can you talk about maybe the psychology or the structure around fundraising from a founder's perspective and how important that is and what you've seen that works?
Yeah, I would say, so you need to get your message. I'm all about storytelling. So for me, like when you pitch, don't pitch to my brain, pitch to my heart. Make me like understand your vision and like why I want to like help you build your dream company, and so, but to get that story really great, sometimes it takes a few times. So I would start with people you don't really want them to invest, but are willing to hear your story and get feedback and see what resonate and what like they don't care about. And then once you build your storytelling, and you see that people are excited, then yeah, like have them back to back to back. A bit like what I said, you want all of them to come to your data room at the same time, and there's kind of a competition. Because yeah, we like VC. Like, sure, we have our thesis, we have like our theory on where it's going, but if you have another VC that you respect, that validates the same thing that you do, and then you co-invest with them, and you're like, okay, we're all going to be together to build this, then things move super fast. As if you're alone and you need to convince the other VCs, and you start doubting yourself also. So for that also, you need to do a bit of back channel and things like that to kind of understand the dynamics, and each fund is a bit different. But yeah, for me, the most important thing is storytelling, and people need to like really feel moved by your mission and say, okay, I want to be part of this.
That is exactly what we talked about. The number one thing that most people overlook is the power of a story. And that unlocks people to make introductions for you. That unlocks, like, I cannot possibly agree more. And it takes so long to actually get the golden nugget of your story, like 50 different iterations, as if you're writing a book, to really simplify it. So that is, by the way, everyone, that was not staged. That is exactly what we said last week at our workshop, Bert. That was amazing. Thank you.
Okay.
That was perfect. Yes. JP, any thoughts on process or kind of like how to create urgency from a founder's perspective?
Yeah, I will also add one more thing with story, which the point Bertrand made, which I thought was really good about storytelling. I think oftentimes, founders have a very grand vision they've been working on. This is something they've been ruminating on for years, right? Now they're executing it. So they've really thought about it, and it's something they're super excited about. But then they go and they meet VCs and they think the VC has the same assumptions that they have, right? But that's the VC's first time ever experiencing it. So you might be here with your ideas and you still need to bring them on the basics. So if you're talking on this level, VC's going to be down here. They don't see that vision. That vision is not aligned. So your goal in that conversation is bringing the VC closer up to where they are on par with the way that you not only see the world in your company, but the way they integrate together.
I think that's an awesome point, because we also talked about how usually the first meeting is the intro where you decide and the VC decides if you like each other. And then the second meeting is basically clarifying all the things that you were really confusing about when you were first giving the pitch. And I think it stems from what you were saying. Like, a founder has certain assumptions. They just assume investors know what they know. And the investor just likes the person enough to go have a second meeting to clarify those things. So I do think that's a very important process. And the sooner you can kind of whittle down the story and help people understand it, the better you're going to be able to hit home runs with investors.
And another way to do that too is being in the right spaces and sharing publicly, right? So that's part of building in public. Not saying give your trade secrets and your strategy out to everything, but share these theses, share these convictions online on like why you're doing something and how you're building. Take Alex here, who's in the group. He and I have not met before, but he's been doing this building in public, so I've been following it. So even though this today was our first time talking, it's already warm, and I've already seen some of the vision, despite us never having spoken before. It's still a very relatively small space. VR is. So if you're writing things, if you're making things, right, that could be YouTube videos, that could be sharing updates on Twitter, on LinkedIn, not necessarily just pitching, but sharing your vision. Say, hey, this is what we've done. This is great. Adding more to that's huge stuff. Another thing I see really good founders do is that they have investor lists. This was maybe more part of a process. So you have a regular update. A lot of really good founders do monthly updates where they share the big wins of the company, what they've done, things that have been improved. And even the VCs that have rejected them or furloughed them or haven't responded to them, they add them to that list, right? So essentially you now keep that VC into a warm contact where even if they're not invested, they're still seeing, hey, they're building. Maybe 6 months later, hey, that looks really good. We had a company like that we invested in. We had been following their updates for 8 months, and we were so impressed with what they were doing. A kind of like lukewarm 8 months ago, it didn't get through our investment committee, then turned into an investment because we were able to follow along and see the vision over time. So I do think having a investor update that you write monthly, maybe quarterly, I prefer monthly, and then just getting the people who you've spoken to on it. They can also share it then. They can digest it. They share it to another VC friend. Hey, maybe this fits your thesis. Take a look at it.
Bert, any thoughts around maintaining communication with investors, even if they say no? Because I also agree that's a great tip from JP.
I love Visible. So like a lot of founders that use Visible, I think it's great for communication with the investors. And sometimes for us, the three partners needs to be excited about the deal to do it, and sometimes one is not excited, and on certain occasion, like it took another 6 months, and then they were excited, and then we did the deal. So I think that if a VC tells you, keep me updated, is they really want to be updated. It's not just to be friendly. And if you have a monthly investor update, just to show the progress and not just the good stuff. We want transparency because, or at least I know how hard it is. So like if you just share the good stuff, I'm like, there's something fishy there. So you need that to have your highlights or lowlights and show progress, and then build that confidence. Like, when we meet, it's like a picture, but if we see a lot of picture, then it becomes a movie. And then I prefer to invest in movies than pictures because it tells a better story,
Invest in trend lines, not dots.
Yeah,
Bert makes a great point with that, with being able to share failures as well. I mean, you have to understand a lot of these VCs, when we talk to hundreds of companies a month, so we see everything, right? We see really good successes, we see failures, and you don't want to lie by omission if you're struggling with something, and then not share that. Most VCs are going to be able to sniff that out, and then it comes off as disingenuous, and then you can't be trusted. So if you are struggling with something, share. And it's very attractive to see a founder who's struggling with a problem sharing their workaround and how they're going about it, right? That demonstrates an ability to solve a problem, to see it, deal with it, and then have the integrity to share it with investors as well.
I shared this with everyone last week, but I just want to share it again because I think it's important, and you guys both just touched on this. Like, when you get a no, this is how I would handle it. This was to an investor a few years ago, but I said, hey, Zach, just looping back and letting you know we closed the round, and it's because of great people like you who are nice enough to message me with quick no's. Like, I was always thanking people for rejecting me because that's such a good use of your time. And so Bert said that too. Like, he tries to make sure that he's not wasting founders' time and vice versa. If you get a no, say thanks for rejecting us. Thanks for actually responding on like 80% of VCs, and then put those people on an email list and bother them until they block you or invest. Like, that is the best advice I can give to people if you're fundraising.
Yeah.
Agreed there? Yeah.
Yeah, right. And don't take the rejection personally, right?
Don't
A
accept it.
rejection.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like, I mean, you know, you see hundreds of companies, you can only make a select number of investments, and it might just be one or two things that mess it up. And so if it's a no, you say, all right, thank you for talking to me. I really appreciate this happening, right? And then you still stay in the loop. And who knows, conversation can reopen again in the future. Yeah.
just want to go fundraise right now. I hope
No, that was a good email, Tom.
All right.
I liked it.
Bert, can you tell us a story of what and maybe your NDAs you can't, but like, what is it like to go through the process of selling to Apple? Anything you can tell us would be curious, because most of us haven't had an exit before.
Sure. They're on top of the world and they know it. So like they're not in a hurry. You know, like like when I sold, I thought we would release a product in 2 years, maybe 3, because I had of course, golden handcuffs. So I tried to negotiate because they wanted 3 years. Then I tried to negotiate. Let's make it 3 years, or when we launch a product. Because in my mind, I'm like, if we launch after 2 years, then you know, maybe I will want to go. Who knows? You know. And they said no, we don't do that. But like with Onsite, I think it's because like they knew that it would be a very long run, and it's a bit the same thing. Like they're never first. So like when you negotiate with them, there's no forcing function really. They like, and for us, they said, you know, if you raise your Series A, it's going to be really hard for us, because they didn't want us to have too much money and to be able like to have a better position for negotiation. But they're great people. So it's not because they're bad or whatever. It's more like they understand the power dynamics. They're in no hurry, like their process is super long. But sometimes you need to create your own forcing function. And for me, it was, and it's not the first time I tell it, so I'll say it again. Like for me, like so Johnny I was a forcing function. We demoed to him. He was super excited. So that got them super quick in their office and everything. But after that, you know, it kind of faded out a bit, and they were taking their time and everything. And for us, like, I was like, I need to do something to make things happen. So I just went in Calgary. Calgary is like in Alberta province of Canada with a lot of oil money. And I just pitched to a few family office, and one of them said, look, I can give you a 15 million loan. And that was the way I kind of forced Apple to make a decision, because I said, look, I have this 15 million loan on the table. It's great. It's non-dilutive. I'm very tempted to take it. we've been negotiating for 4 months now, like shit or get off the pot. And the day after I got the LOI. So yeah.
Wow. So you closed.
I
you took it
closed.
in your own hands and closed. Yeah, you didn't let it happen.
You have to be a good salesman for sure, as a CEO. And I think I'm not bad at it. So yeah.
That's awesome. Wow. How big was your team at that point? Small group?
We were 17 people, like 12 engineers, a few technical artists and things like that to do a really good demo. And then they like, they like sharpshooters. They don't like generalists or whatever. So they took 9 out of 12 engineers, which is really good. And then we move in California. Yeah.
Awesome. That's cool. I think fundraising is similar. Like you got it. No one's moving the ball forward. Same with acquisition. You got to be the one that's forcing the close. You got to really figure out.
Oh yeah, and it's an art because
it's an art.
Yeah. Us, we raised a small seed round, like $750,000 in 2014. And all our hope was we'll do a Kickstarter. It's going to be a huge success, like Oculus, blah blah blah. And it almost worked. We raised $100K the first day, which is pretty. Even in today's standard, I get $100K on the first day is pretty great. But then, yeah, it was 2 days before the first Oculus Connect. They showed their latest like Crescent Bay prototype. Anyway, it kind of stalled our campaign. And then after that, I tried to raise with VC money, and it was really, really hard because Magic Leap went to all the specialized VCs. And everybody was like, "Oh wow, your demo is really good," but yeah, we're already in Magic Leap. So I had to raise another $2 million from angels, like $100K at a time. That was so brutal, but I did learn how to pace it. Angel is a bit different. Like you don't want to be too pushy, and you need that herd mentality. Sometimes you have someone who's super excited, so he's coming in. And then you bring the others who are like kind of, yeah, I'm not sure, blah blah. So yeah, it was quite something. Yeah.
How much of your time's going towards fundraising versus building the business at that point? Because I think a lot
too
of
much. Like 80% of the time would be fundraising. Yeah, I like after a seed round, So we did a Kickstarter. It fell, but we learned so much from it because we learned that what people got really excited about the totem was the AR part. So, we had better VR than the DK2, but people were like, "Oh, you have cameras, like, so you can do AR." And at that point, the architecture was not at all geared towards AR. So, and we were only 6 people at the time. And I knew for the new architecture, it would be massive. We need like embedded Linux and super powerful FPGA and everything. So we had to double the team. But back then we had kind of a 18 months runway, which was comfortable. But if we would double the team and do new prototypes and everything, would go down to 6 months. So from that point, when we doubled the team, I never had more than 3 months runway. So I was always fundraising. It was madness. I would never wish that to my worst enemy. It was brutal. I didn't sleep much for like 18 months. But anyway, it was still a great experience. And I think I'm a much better salesman now because of that. But yeah, it's fundraising is never like, no, even now as a VC, I need to fundraise. Like every 4 years, I need to raise a new fund. And it's not fun. Like we closed, so we had our first close like 2.5 years ago. We did our second close 1.5 years. I was like, okay, I'm good for a while fundraising, but no, it's like a startup. You raise every 2 years because now like we're gonna start a second fund in 1.5 years. But for that we need to start fundraising before. So now it's like history repeating. So I feel you founders fundraising. It's not fun.
Yep. Trial by fire. Well said.
Yeah.
JP, have you gone through a fundraise yet, or is that what your fund's currently doing, or what's your experience on the fundraise side?
Yeah, so we raised fund one. Fund one's closed, and we invested everything into that portfolio companies, and we're now currently raising for fund two. But just like founders raising, I mean, we have to raise from limited partners, and it can be tough when it changes on the environment. Not being in a zero interest rate environment makes it a little bit more difficult as well. For VCs, your options typically for liquidity, the most common of the two are either a company going public and then selling shares publicly, or in acquisition. And both of those markets have become a lot slower, right? So we have LenaCon exactly blocking a lot. We saw that with the Meta and within acquisition. So, acquisitions are in gridlock. Companies have not been going public as frequently. Hopefully this changes. I think it's probably going to change within the next year or so. So that's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, but LPs are a different beast. Much less fun than VCs and founders are, I would say.
I would agree.
Yeah. Does anyone have a final question here before we let everyone hop off? Thank you, for the world for staying later. This means a lot to us and is very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, Don, I like the group. I like how you guys have created it feels like a collective. Feels very like a social collective. It's great.
I'm very proud of all the members. Yeah, it's really cool. I couldn't have imagined this when it started. It's been very fun.
How do we stay like a good cockroach and survive?
You don't overspend, don't overhire. Those are the two big things you can do, right? So maximize what you can do. If you're looking at a solution, and if you can figure out how to make that solution cost 1/10 of what it does, do that instead.
Get a big option pool and give options instead of don't pay market. Okay, it was way back, now the prices are way higher than that. But I mean, let's say I would get a great engineer for 100K. I would tell him, look, I can pay you 80 and give you the equivalent of 20K of RSUs, not RSUs, but options, or 90 and 10, or I can pay you market, but you get nothing. And nobody would say, I want no equity. Everybody took equity. And then, so by, being creative on that and flexible, I think it's a good way to reduce the burn. And yeah, in Canada we have lots of non-dilutive also, so get that. I know in the US is really different, but you have more VCs, so more competition. So I think it's easier to raise in the US. But yeah, I mean, don't say I'll build it and they will come. This is not a good strategy. Go step by step, get a close feedback loop. Don't build alone and then try it. Building the public is great. Like an artist, an artist will create a song and then make it listen, and then sometimes it worked, and then they'll do their album based on what works more and blah blah blah. So it's a bit the same thing. You need to test different things, learn from it, and then improve until you get your product market fit.
Thank you. Great advice.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, let's hop off and send them a question after on LinkedIn or Twitter. We got to let them go. We want to be respectful of time.
I just wanted to know, do they take a board seat usually, or is that not always the case?
Yeah, well, because we mostly lead. So when we lead, of course, we have a board seat. But for example, in Shades, we didn't lead, but we have an observer seat. So it depends how the deal is structured. Shade was a really big seed. We couldn't lead, because we do a maximum of 1.5 million Canadian So, and it was like a 6 million seed round, I think. But yeah, most of the time, one of the things that frustrated me as a founder is we had a kind of a spray and pray VC. So they did like 60 investment per year. So like we were kind of a number, and they were not very helpful. So for me, when I got approached to start a fund, I was like, okay, but I want to do less investment. We lead, we only do 5 per years, but we get really involved, and we made things happen. So far so good.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right, we'll end it with a freestyle rap
Oh.
here. I'm not lazy.
Can I
I'm not
end it?
lazy. Give it up for JP. Go, JP. Go.
Okay, thank you. I'm not gonna freestyle in the same way Don is. So that's not where my mind is. No, okay, sorry.
Oh,
Yeah. If you guys are building on the Quest ecosystem, and even if we're not a fit, I want to talk to you, right? And help with Quest data. So if you're building on Quest, please send me a DM that you want to talk about Quest. So would love to do that. Super exciting.
Thank you so
All
much.
right. Yeah, Don, if you wanna wrap it up.
Yeah, and then I gotta do one for Bert. All right.
Literally.
Y'all are not jerks. Thanks for the work. Let's give it up for JP and Bert. Okay. clap it up.
Oh,
Thanks
very
everyone
Oh,
for
that's
coming.
good. All right.
Have an awesome day. Adios. Goodbye.
Awesome.
Thank you.